Pay attention to the man at the ATM. This is 28-year-old Mark Jennings, an architect who recently moved to Denver, Colorado. He is simply withdrawing cash on a Friday night. Now look at the dark figure approaching him from behind. This is the first suspect. In seconds, he will attack Mark, demanding the money. Finally, notice this silver sedan swerving violently toward the curb. The driver is 30-year-old Sarah Beth Dixon. She lays on the horn and the attacker flees. She gets out to help Mark, appearing to be a good Samaritan. She helps the clearly shaken but grateful Mark into her car. He believes he has just been rescued. He does not know that the mugger is her brother. This was not a rescue. It was a planned abduction. This footage is the last time anyone would see Mark Jennings alive. Mark Jennings was a man who lived by his plans. At 28, his life was a series of meticulously organized spreadsheets. A 5-year plan for his career, a debt repayment plan for his student loans, even a color-coded workout schedule. He had moved to Denver from a small stagnant town in Ohio 6 months prior, not on a whim, but after a 2-year process of saving money and researching architectural firms. He loved the clean, sharp lines of the city's new developments set against the rugged, unpredictable backdrop of the Rockies. He was methodical, quiet, and unfailingly polite. His sister Chloe, 3 years older and living in Seattle, was his only close family. They were bound by the shared premature loss of their parents, and their Sunday night check-in calls were a non-negotiable ritual. He was, as she would later tell anyone who would listen, trusting to a fault. He believed in the fundamental goodness of people, a trait that, in the isolating anonymity of a new city, would soon prove to be a fatal vulnerability. When Chloe's phone remained silent at 8 p.m. on Sunday, October 16th, she felt the first cold prickle of unease. She texted him, "Hey, forgot about me? Call me." No reply. She called. It went straight to voicemail, which was odd. Mark's phone was never off. She tried again at 9 p.m. and then at 10. By Monday morning, her unease had blossomed into a cold, hard panic. She called his office and her worst fears were confirmed. Mark, the man who had never been late a day in his life, hadn't shown up for work. He wasn't answering his apartment buzzer. She booked the first flight from SeaTac to Denver, a 2.5-hour flight that felt like a lifetime. She went straight from the airport to his LODO apartment, using the spare key he'd mailed her. The apartment was pristine, just as she'd expected, but the silence was wrong. A coffee mug was in the sink, his work laptop was on its stand, his keys and work ID were in a small bowl by the door. Everything was in its place except for Mark. She went straight to the Denver Police Department's downtown precinct. The desk sergeant, a man with a face like worn leather, was dismissive. "Ma'am, he's 28 years old. It's a big city. He probably just met someone, went to the mountains for a long weekend, phone died, he'll turn up." But Chloe, organized even in her grief, was not a hysterical relative. She was a systems analyst. She opened her binder. "This is his work schedule," she said, her voice level. "This is his gym schedule. These are his last 5 credit card statements. Mark does not deviate. He is not in the mountains. He is missing. Something is wrong." Her certainty, her sheer organized terror was enough to get a detective assigned. Detective Miles Corbett, a 20-year veteran of the Violent Crimes Unit, caught the case. He was weary, just weeks from retirement, and had seen this script play out 100 times. 99 times, the sergeant was right. But as he looked at the file Chloe had built, he felt that familiar acidic jolt in his gut. This was the 1%. He began the methodical work, the digital breadcrumbs. Mark's credit card was last used at a gas station Friday afternoon. His phone's last ping was near his apartment around 9 p.m. Corbett started checking ATMs in the area, and he found him. The Wells Fargo footage from Friday, October 14th, 9:34 p.m. At first, Corbett felt a wave of relief. The sequence was clear: a mugging, an attack, and then a rescue. The silver sedan, the Angel of Colfax as the press would later dub her, seemed like a stroke of incredible luck. "Okay," Corbett said to his partner. So he was mugged. He's probably embarrassed, lying low, or maybe he's in a hospital as a John Doe. The DPD issued a press release praising the brave bystander and publishing a grainy still urging her to come forward. But she didn't, and a week bled into 2. Mark Jennings had vanished. His bank accounts were untouched. His phone remained a dead brick. The Angel of Colfax was a ghost. Corbett couldn't sleep. The case file sat on his nightstand, mocking him. He returned to the station at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, a cold cup of 7-Eleven coffee in his hand, and sat in the dark viewing room. He played the loop, again and again. He wasn't looking at the mugger anymore. He was looking at the car. Why did she swerve before the struggle was clearly visible from her angle? Why didn't she just keep driving and call 911? He slowed the footage to 1/4 speed, his eyes burning. He isolated the frames, advancing them one by one, and then he saw it. At 9:34:12 p.m., a fraction of a second before the sedan swerved, the hooded figure in the middle of attacking Mark turned his head toward the approaching car. He wasn't looking in panic. He was looking in anticipation. At 9:34:13 p.m., the driver, the woman, gave an almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't a gesture of shock. It was a signal. Go time. Corbett felt the blood drain from his face. He picked up his phone. "Sergeant, wake up the team. Call the forensic video unit. She's not a witness. She's the driver." The entire investigation, the entire narrative, pivoted on that single frame. This was a setup, a complex staged abduction. Mark hadn't been rescued, he'd been taken. The team now treated the Good Samaritan as their primary suspect. They re-examined the footage, but the license plate was a blur of reflected light. The forensic tech spent 8 hours on it, isolating individual pixels. "It's a mess, Miles." Glare from the streetlight. But he got something. Not a full plate, but 3 digits, the letter K, and just as importantly, a dealership emblem on the trunk. Greeley Toyota. Cross-referencing sales records for 2018 Camrys with that partial plate gave them a list of 42 possible owners in the Denver metro area. "Start knocking on doors," Corbett ordered. "Now." As the team began the grueling legwork, visiting a confused old lady in Littleton and a terrified college kid in Boulder, Chloe Jennings called. She was hysterical. "I got in," she was weeping. "I guessed his password, his laptop. Oh God, detective, you have to look at this." She had found his Hinge dating app. As Chloe scrolled through the messages, her horror grew. She was looking at a transcript of a predator grooming its prey. Sarah had been relentlessly charming and empathetic, a perfect mirror of Mark's own kind nature. She would complain about her long 12-hour shifts as a hero nurse, and Mark, in his typical fashion, would offer sympathy and call her a hero. Sarah artfully played the victim, replying that she was no hero, just someone trying to pay off her crushing student loans, adding how hard it was to get ahead while being all alone in the city. The conversation showed how she carefully extracted the key pieces of his life. He lived alone, he was new to town, he didn't know many people. And then Chloe's finger froze on the screen. She saw the fatal mistake. Mark, proud of his financial discipline, had shared his good news. He'd finally hit his savings goal, transferring money into his new house fund. He mentioned the specific sum, $50,000. Sarah's reply was immediate and ecstatic, full of praise for how responsible and amazing he was. She immediately pivoted, writing, "We should totally celebrate that." Friday? The very Friday he disappeared. Corbett now had the motive and the meeting. He looked at his list of 42 names. There at number 27, Sarah Beth Dixon, 30, of Aurora. The address matched, the car matched, the name matched the Hinge profile. "We've got her," Corbett said. A warrant for her phone records was rushed. It confirmed what he already knew. It also revealed a Zelle transfer at 11:45 p.m. that Friday, October 14th, $50,000 sent from Mark's savings account to Sarah Dixon's. Sarah Beth Dixon, 30, was, on paper, a model citizen, a registered nurse at a major Denver hospital. She was described by colleagues as competent, if a little cold. But the background check Corbett ran told a story of quiet, screaming desperation. She was drowning in over $100,000 of debt from student loans and, as they later discovered, a severe online gambling addiction. This was the secret that unraveled her. 2 months prior, she had been caught on a hospital security camera swapping fentanyl vials with saline. The hospital board, fearing a high-profile lawsuit and the bad press of an Angel of Mercy scandal, offered her a deal: resign immediately, citing personal reasons, and they would not report her to the nursing board or the police. Sarah took the deal, but in doing so, she cut off her only source of income. The banks were calling. Foreclosure was imminent. She wasn't just desperate, she was cornered. And her resentment had been building for years. She felt the world owed her. She felt entitled to a life she couldn't afford. She didn't just stumble on Mark, she had been hunting for a type. He was just the first to mention a specific large sum, and she had an accomplice. The mugger in the video was 24-year-old Kevin Dixon, her younger brother. Kevin was weak-willed with a string of petty misdemeanors, and he was completely under Sarah's thumb. She had co-signed for his apartment. She had paid his legal fees after a DUI. She controlled him emotionally and financially. When she presented the plan, she framed it not as a violent crime, but as a simple, non-violent con. "This guy is rich and lonely, Kev," she told him. "We just scare him, I save him, he's grateful, and he'll loan me the money. Nobody gets hurt. We just get what we're owed." Kevin, terrified of her anger and desperate for her approval, agreed. On October the 30th, 16 days after Mark vanished, a SWAT team executed a no-knock warrant on Sarah's apartment at 5 a.m. The findings were chilling. Tucked in her bedroom closet under a stack of towels was Mark's laptop. In her dresser drawer, they found his wallet, emptied of cash but still containing his driver's license. The forensic team went to work on her Camry. The trunk, they noted, smelled overpowering. "It's not just a trace, Miles," the lead tech said, his voice muffled by a mask. "She poured bottles of bleach back here." A luminol spray confirmed their fears. The entire space lit up like a Christmas tree, a ghostly testament to a frantic and failed cleanup. The most crucial clue, however, was a single muddy hiking boot in her closet. The tread was distinctive, and caked in it was a reddish granitic soil. Corbett looked at it. "That's not Denver mud. Get me a soil expert from the School of Mines. Today." When Sarah Dixon was brought in for questioning, she was the picture of calm, collected concern. She was an ER nurse, trained in chaos. This was just another emergency. She sat across from Corbett, hands folded, and projected pure professional empathy. "Detective, I'm a nurse," she said, her voice laced with it. "My entire life is about helping people." She manufactured tears, claiming she was terrified. She said Mark was a sweet man, but troubled. She then launched into her masterpiece, a lie so detailed, so practiced, it was almost believable. "Mark was in trouble, Detective," she whispered, leaning forward. "He got mixed up with a loan shark, owed them a lot of money. That mugging wasn't for me, it was a warning for him." She claimed he transferred the $50,000 to her for safekeeping, begging her to protect it. "He said he was going to leave town to lay low. He trusted me. He said I was the only one he could trust. What was I supposed to do, say no?" Corbett let her finish. The performance was flawless. He let the silence hang in the room for a full minute. "So you were just protecting him," Corbett said flatly. "That's why you scrubbed your trunk with bleach." Sarah's eyes didn't flicker. "My dog got sick in the car." It was disgusting. Corbett nodded slowly. "You were fired 2 months ago for stealing fentanyl." This was the first crack. A flash of pure rage, hot and quick, passed through her eyes before the mask of empathy slammed back into place. "That was a misunderstanding. It has nothing to do with this. I was trying to help Mark." Corbett leaned forward and dropped a black and white printout of Kevin's mugshot on the table. "You said you didn't know the mugger." "That you were terrified of him, so you won't mind telling me why he has the same last name as you." It was as if a switch had been thrown. Sarah's face went white. The small, sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room. Her mask of practiced empathy didn't just crack, it evaporated. It was replaced by the cold, flat appraisal of a predator whose prey had just revealed a set of teeth. She tried to pivot, to sputter. "My brother?" "No, he wouldn't. He's troubled." She was already trying to build a new lie, one where Kevin was the violent one who forced her, but it was too late. Corbett stood up. "Sarah Beth Dixon, you're under arrest for the murder of Mark Jennings." While Sarah demanded a lawyer, a separate team, led by a detective named Ramirez, interviewed her brother. Kevin Dixon was not a sociopath. He was a terrified young man, and he was shaking so violently he could barely sit. He kept asking for Sarah. "Is she okay? Did you hurt her?" She didn't do anything. He was completely brainwashed. Ramirez used a classic technique. "Hurt her. She's in the next room singing like a canary. She's telling us this was all your idea, that you're a psycho, Kevin, that you're obsessed with her, that you killed Mark and she was too scared to stop you. It was a lie, but it worked." "What?" Kevin's head snapped up. No, she wouldn't." Ramirez leaned in. "She did. She's trading you for a deal. She's walking. You're taking the needle for her." That was all it took. Kevin Dixon collapsed, a gut-wrenching sob tearing out of him. No, it was her plan. It was all her. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't even want to be there." The confession poured out, a torrent of guilt and terror. The plan had been simple: scare Mark, get him in the car, drive to his apartment, and convince him to make the transfer. But it went wrong. In the car, Mark, calming down from the mugging, was thanking Sarah profusely. His gaze drifted to the rearview mirror where Kevin was slouched. Mark went still. "He just looked at me," Kevin wept, and he said, "Wait, I know you." He looked at my jacket. Then he looked at Sarah. You're the guy. Oh my God, you're the guy from the ATM." Then he shouted, "You set me up." Mark grabbed the steering wheel, trying to force the car off the road. Sarah wrestled for control, screaming, and yanked the car onto a dark, deserted stretch of Highway 285. She put the car in park and turned. "She told me to hold him," Kevin said, his voice barely a whisper. "She got out, went to the trunk, and came back with the tire iron." Kevin said he tried to stop her. I grabbed her arm. I said, "Sarah, no, stop, you're killing him." And she looked at me. Not at him, at me. Her eyes were empty. She said, "He saw us, Kevin. It's him or us." And she didn't stop. She was just like hitting a piece of wood. She was just working. The drive to the Rocky Mountain National Park was silent, broken only by Kevin's hysterical sobs. Sarah was like ice, he said, focused, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. She'd been hiking near Bear Lake before and knew a secluded spot. She made Kevin help carry the body, wrapped in a tarp. "You're in this with me," she'd told him, her voice flat. He got sick twice while digging the shallow grave. She just kept working. Guided by Kevin's map, drawn on a legal pad, DPD officers and park rangers found Mark's remains on November 2nd. The soil at the gravesite, reddish and granitic, was a perfect match for the sample from Sarah's boot. The tire iron was recovered from a canyon below, just as Kevin had described. The case was ironclad. The trial in September 2024 was a media circus. The prosecution, led by ADA Rena Valdez, laid out the methodical digital and forensic chain. Sarah's defense, facing a mountain of evidence and her brother's testimony, tried a desperate ploy: battered woman syndrome. They claimed Kevin was the abusive, controlling one, that he had forced her into the scheme, that she was a victim too. Valdez dismantled it on cross-examination. "Ms. Dixon, you claim your brother, who you paid rent for, controlled you, but you co-signed his lease, you paid his lawyer after his DUI." "He controlled me emotionally," Sarah insisted, her mask of the victim firmly in place. "You're a trained emergency room nurse, correct? You've taken an oath. You know how to save a life." "Yes," Sarah whispered, But when Mark Jennings was bleeding in your car, you didn't render aid. You didn't call 911. You didn't drive to the hospital you used to work at. You drove 60 miles into the mountains. Why? I was scared, Sarah wept. Valdez walked back to the prosecution table. You weren't scared, Miss Dixon. You were busy. You were busy finishing a murder you planned for 3 weeks for $50,000. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours. Guilty. First-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. At the sentencing, Chloe Jennings read her victim impact statement, her voice shaking but strong. There are 2 victims here, my brother Mark and the person my brother believed in. He died because he was a good person. He died because he saw someone he thought needed help, and he got in her car to comfort her. You are a black hole in the shape of a person, Sarah. You didn't just take his life, you took his story, you took his future. Sarah Beth Dixon remained motionless as the judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kevin Dixon, for his cooperation, received 20 years. As Sarah was led from the courtroom in chains, she was stone-faced. She caught Chloe's eye, a sister in mourning, and she smirked, a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk. The final, chilling proof that the mask was all there ever was.